My name is Ray James. I am the current chair of the Intellectual Freedom Committee, but today I want to talk about a special passion of mine, which is the standards for the incarcerated or detained and the life of those incarcerated who need special consideration to supply them with what anyone who can go to a public library finds. The new standards are new because the last ones were updated in 1992. This is about me, my current role in the American Library Association and in other tasks relating to the incarcerated. I am a formerly incarcerated person. I was released from prison in 2002 and proceeded to decide to go back to college and get my degree in library science. And I did that in 2007. These are other activities that I have been involved in since that date. First, I want to talk about the types of carceral facilities. There are prisons, there are jails, there are detention facilities, including immigration camps, low security, medium security, high security, and maximum security facilities. Each state has a tendency to have low security camps where they put people who are not at risk of causing violent crime and where they are not at risk of or are likely to try to escape. Medium security means just that. You are not allowed outside the gate of the prison. High security is even more intense, and maximum security are for folks who generally don't see other people 24 hours a day for the length of their sentence. Now, the rules for prisons vary from state to state. That is to say, what might be allowed in one state is not allowed in another state. What is allowed in one prison of the federal system might be allowed in that state and that's in that prison only. They might require a prison to follow certain rules that are thought to be universal, but in fact aren't. And they vary by administrator to administrator. One administrator might come in and say, this is how we're going to run this place. Another one has a completely different way to approach the situation. Prison conditions vary by state, by institution, and by prisoner. And by that, I mean a prisoner is treated oftentimes differently depending on the prison system's view of that particular prison. There are a multitude of prison library styles. Legal is required by law. That's where you can access law books, where you can access information about the law and perhaps even research your own sentence. I did that at the beginning of my sentence and managed to get one of the leading charges against me dropped by doing my own research and presenting that to my attorney. There are educational libraries in prison where the library supports the education department and provides materials related to the educational programs of the prison. There's our recreational reading libraries, which are formal and informal. Some are very much like public libraries. If you can go, you are allowed to go and walk through the stacks and look for something to read. There are informal public libraries, informal prison libraries. The prison library that I had when I was incarcerated was simply a shelf where people put books that people had sent them after they had finished reading them. The informal is essential if there's no other source of material, but it's not well organized and it's not coordinated. Of the prisons that exist, the public library model and the education focused model, which is often called the change base model, are two types. The public library, for instance, many of the prison libraries in Colorado use the public library model, in that if you didn't know you were in a prison library, you might not know that this was, in fact, a library in prison. The education focused are more rigorous and often only carry materials that support the program of the education department. Carceral librarians vary. Some of them are professional librarians with master's degrees from ALA-approved institutions, and some are eager incarcerated people who want to help with the library, and often may run it without the support of the institution. Others have support of the institution, but not much help. In addition to that, library programs vary in prison libraries. Some are almost like public libraries. Others are more rigorous, such as the education-focused library. The first ALA annual that I attended went to a meeting of the Prisoners Forum, which was what it was called at that time. And one of the major topics of discussion that day was the need to update the 1992 standards. Again, this was 2007. In 2009, I started to work on the prisoner's right to read. And in 2010, the prisoner's right to read passed the IFC and the council and became a new interpretation of the Library Bill of Rights. That interpretation was printed in the Intellectual Freedom Manual of 2015. Prisoners Forum and its subsequent iterations continued discussion of update of the 1992 standards without much change. In 2020 at Philadelphia Midwinter, I met with Aaron Boyington, who coordinates prison libraries in Colorado, at a NASCO social events, and we dedicated ourselves already, after a few beers, dedicated ourselves to getting new standards written. That process included building the infrastructure to get the standards written. We were fortunate that Tracy Hall became executive director of the American Library Association at about the same time. And one of her missions was to get the standards rewritten and to improve the services provided for the incarcerated. The San Francisco Public Library had a major role in this. The American Library Association also had a major role in this. And all of this mostly was funded by a grant from the Mellon Foundation, which wanted to improve the availability of information for the incarcerated. And we began by leveraging the community and inviting collaboration to that group. Toward that end, we had this, which is kind of funny, but this is a depiction of what we talked about at that first meeting, which was over 100 people who had some interest or some stake in the providing information in the incarcerated. Most of those things came to be in some form or another. Out of that came the process of drafting the standards. We had a drafting group. There was also an editing group and a research group. But these folks were the ones who really got involved in writing the standards and providing that information to ALA Publishing. There are two formerly incarcerated people on this list, and all of the others were involved either academically or as actual carceral librarians. We had 35 meetings, roughly 165 person hours to collaborate and co-work, plus each one of us did a lot of additional writing, research, and editing on our own time. We had a lot to consider about how information law and societies inside of facilities have changed since writing the original standards. And we were working during COVID and with the Black Lives Matter and judicial reform issues front in our mind, because that was what was happening slightly before and during what we were working on. We wanted to create a standard that would serve anyone in carceral detention facilities, regardless of age, ethnicity, sexual identity, or orientation, religion or none, languages spoken, disability, or security level. That is to say, regardless of the carceral institution you were in, even if it was just a jail with outpatient services or an administrative maximum prison, we wanted the incarcerated to be able to use the standards. The standards themselves begin with introductions and front matter, preface, forward, and intro. We have a concise version of the standards that Department of Corrections administrators could use. We have a full detailed guidance on implementation of these standards, and we have where it worked, real examples of successful implementation for a wide range of facilities and perspectives. This is real life. This is where people actually did this work and the response that they had in the work. We also provide worksheets for a continuous assessment so that someone can look at where their carceral facility is, their carceral library, and make changes to improve it, which in improving it means to make it more responsive. The concise version is good for administrators, wardens, or administrators, policymakers, anyone who's interested in just the basics. This is the headline. This will allow people to just look and determine if there's some area of interest. Once they have finished if they're interested in a specific topic, they can go to the full version of the standards and read more and in detail about this program. These standards are designed to be flexible for the administrator, but also to provide the essential educational and popular reading for the incarcerated. And again, making the aspirational possible. This is where it worked. It is written by the people who actually did the work and what their experience was. We also have reflection prompts, which used by the carceral librarian or whoever is working in the library can provide a better idea of where they want to go and how they might get there. This is essential because unless you know where you are, you don't know how to get where you want to go. San Francisco Public Library provides services to the incarcerated, such as weekly jail service, 2 county jails, and a reference hall. They do reference by mail in collaboration with other library systems in California. Other library systems across the country, St. Louis and New York, come to mind, where they do reference by mail, which if you have any idea, if you've ever been incarcerated, or if you know someone that's incarcerated, finding out information is often very difficult. It's not like you can Google it. There's the impression that prisoners have access to computers. Generally speaking, that is not true. There may be a tablet, but it's limited as to what it can access. Usually some email system that is reviewed, but hardly just Google and ask a question that you want. The San Francisco Public Library, along with other libraries, some large, some small, are providing reentry and outreach services, and they work on local partnerships and local projects to help the incarcerated or the most recently released. This is a list of reentry services and the library that provides them. Some libraries use special programs such as acting and speaking programs to help the formerly incarcerated or the newly unincarcerated to learn skills that will help them as they re-enter the society. One, Oakland Public Library uses a lawyer in the library, which can be extremely helpful to the formerly incarcerated. And there are local resource guides where a formerly incarcerated person could actually just pick up the document and use it to provide their own guidance as to how they want to re-enter society. We see the standards as a practical guide. It's not comprehensive. It's not prescriptive, but it does provide some insight for almost anyone, whether a carceral librarian, a prison administrator, and it serves as a practical guide to give you step-by-step instructions in how to accomplish the goal, which is, of course, provide more information for incarcerated people. The standards also can be used as a policy tool. A carceral librarian might use it to say, this is the standard that ALA and others produced, and we'd like to do this here. Here is the exact way we want to do that. This is what we want to become our policy. It will be frequently updated. It was just made available last fall, so there hasn't been time to get updates, but there are comments on the use of the standards and how they might be improved. We also would like to use the standards as a way to have an institutional memory. We want it to be that no one who's gone through the incarcerated experience and used a library facility is forgotten what they've learned. That's most important. I relied heavily on my experience incarcerated to help write the international standards for prison libraries. And we also want to get feedback from those who use the programs within the carceral institution. What happened? What worked? Essentially, the where it worked times writ large, where those who have experienced the work that they did under the tutelage of the standards can provide that feedback. We also want to continue this work of having more input from incarcerated library workers as well as formerly incarcerated people. We had formerly incarcerated people work on the standards, but we had a difficult time getting access to incarcerated library workers who we felt could provide the most information and the most insight. And we hope that through the actual existence of the standards that now we will be able to get direct information from incarcerated library workers. We want more services and more variety of services. There can be no situation where you have too little service for incarcerated people. The need is just too great. The Intellectual Freedom Manual, which will be rewritten in the next year, will contain some of this information. And the IFLA guidelines for library services to prisoners is available now simply by going to the IFLA webpage and searching their website, and you will find that document there. As you note, it was finally approved and put into use in February of 2023, and we used the IFLA standards in writing the American Library Standards. It's important to maintain a network. If those carceral librarians and those carceral or formerly incarcerated people need to have access to others, and among those are the Prison L mailing list, which both the Library Services for the Justice Involved, a group of ODLOS and ALA, have, and also IFLA has a Prison L. It's spelled a little differently, but both are similar in that they attract a lot of people who are working with the incarcerated. We want to expand information access for incarcerated people. It's absolutely essential. We'd love to get to the point where they could view videos, read white papers, or write white papers, and have some newsletters. This is a list of resources, which if you want to access the slides after this hearing, you can go to that and find ways to get this information. It's a long list, but valuable. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for your patience. And please, if you want a copy of the standards for library services for the incarcerated or detained, you can contact ALA, and they will help get you a copy. Or about 2,000 carceral institutions were given a copy of this by Mellon, and we hope that others will avail themselves of this book. Thank you for your time.